Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video we're going to explore the folkloric traditions and rituals and peculiar days for December 2025 from the British, Celtic and the Italian tradition. But before we get started, if you like what I do on here, you can support me directly on Ko-fi, and in this way you help me subsidize and keep access to all my educational content free for everyone. And there's goodies for you too, like Discord, credits, monthly lives, and of course you can also get a tarot reading with me, Italian style, and you can also get the year ahead readings at the moment for December 2025 and January 2026. So if you'd like to support me there, hey, thank you so very much. So, we're gonna go first, as you all know, into the British Almanac. It's the last month that we're using this, but hopefully the new one is on its way to arrive, so we're gonna continue this series in 2026. For December, what is there to say? There's very little light, and I think anyone that has anything akin to seasonal affective disorder can pretty much tell. This culminates, as you all know, for the most important probably date that we have in December, which is going to be the winter solstice. The winter solstice is the day where the night and the darkness last the longest, and the days and the light last the shorter, but then, once we get there, from the next day onwards, days start to get longer again. So it's as bad as it gets, basically. Also here in the UK, because we are in the northern hemisphere, it's basically the lowest that the sun gets to the angle, because indeed the winter solstice is the day that the sun is perpendicular to the Tropic of Capricorn, which is 30-something degrees south of the equator. There you go. This is a month dominated by Christmas, the largest celebration of the year in the UK and Ireland, and unquestionably an astronomical celebration. This darkest day of the year has been celebrated since ancient times. The final day of the Roman winter festival Saturnalia fell on the 25th of December and was called Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the Sol Invictus, the invincible sun. Anglo-Saxons also celebrated Yule or midwinter on the 25th of December. In Old English, Modrank meant mothers and night. It seems likely that this date was adopted as Christ's birthday, as there was already such a strong tradition of celebration around this time. And indeed, as soon as we go to the Italian part, I'm going to tell you something about Saturnalia, specifically the Roman festival that was then overtaken by Yule, Christmas, everything, but it's all in good time. But I've made a video a couple of years ago specifically about that, so I'll link that down in the description below. Let's go into the moons. The full moon is on the 4th of December, and it's a super full moon, the third super full moon, and this time is in the sign of Gemini, which Leendertz is particularly positive about. Good for her. The Gemini supermoon ruled by Mercury is a bringer of light. It can also highlight the duality of our lives when we may feel overwhelmed or lonely depending on our circumstances. Gemini's medicine is about bringing together, weaving the threads of unity throughout our differences wherever it's possible. Gemini is a messenger, so use your gift of language and communication to unite any duality you might be experiencing at this time. Which, wishful thinking, but because December, because of the holidays, also becomes a time where most people are not forced, but strongly suggested by society to spend time with their family regardless of their relationship with this family. Might sound a bit victim-blaming in the sense that if you are a queer person, a marginalized person, you have to end up going back home and sitting at a table with people that hold beliefs and would vote in a way that actually is against your entire identity and existence. Might not be that easy to bring the duality together, no matter how good of a communicator you are. So if that happens, I'll tell you what I do. And usually, despite my desire and my brain popping up every time that I hear someone saying something silly because they are miseducated about issues, I usually ask Venus, which is my patron deity, one of my patron deities, to not only give me the gift of the gab, but also give me the gift to understand when it's not worth talking back. Because there needs to be a certain kind of context for people to even be open-minded enough to listen to you. and your racist uncle during Christmas might not be worth your energy, basically. So that's, I'm just saying it because the way that Leendertz talks about the Gemini full moon, and it's in, you know, around the time of the holidays, and so maybe you need to bring different ideas together. It's not your job to spend that energy when people don't listen to you. Save that energy for yourself, spend it in things that bring you good things, rather than people that cannot make the effort to understand that other things and other people exist other than them, and they're still fine to exist. Oh, she's feisty today. When the moon moves into the Mercury-ruled air sign of Gemini, communication and ideas come to the forefront. This social, adaptable, quick-witted and excitable sign is about connecting as well as the understanding, gathering and exchange of information. So the moon in this sign favors communication, especially about feelings or things that excite you. This is a good time for socialization. Engage in your inner conversationalists. Again, when it's worth it. Spell-wise, in order to not let this lunar energy scatter your emotion, magical focus and mind, it is important to balance it within your heart. Use spells to summon communication and inspiration, network and connect. Integrate your favorite form of communication into your spells, or work word magic, such as writing, speaking, inscribing a word onto a candle, or chanting. Spells connected to transportation, writing, siblings, and the exchange and gathering of information are all Gemini moon magic themes. First thing that comes to mind is making some sort of sigil, possibly with comfrey, especially if you have to travel to go back to your family, where it's just give me the power not to engage, and protect me, protection and ability to not step into sticky things, and just get through it. Just get through it. That would be what I do on the full moon in Gemini in preparation for the holidays. And then we have the new moon in Sagittarius on the 20th of December. Leendertz doesn't go too much in detail. She just describes it as a time that encourages us to take a leap of faith into the dark. I love Sagittarius. I think that is a sign of fire, but that sociable fire, that it's almost fire of air. Does it make sense when I go these weird ways? Also because, like, one of my favorite people in the world, which is Kellyanne Maddox, is a Sagittarius, so I kind of see that. And then it's fire, but it's actually ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is this knowledge expansion. Good Sagittariuses. We like Sagittariuses. Ruled by Jupiter, the Sagittarius moon also energizes spare for optimism and hope. You might invoke the Sagittarius moon for luck, abundance, expansion, positivity, and even favorable legal results. I can totally see that. Again, it goes along with the communication, it goes along with the learning and established institutions for the legal part. Because when you look then at Sagittarius and they're ruled by Jupiter, is this expansion, but it's also higher education. I can see how legal stuff goes in that direction. Considering that this is a new moon, it's when we set our intention to then develop not only in the moon cycle, but probably in the next 6 months before that new moon in Sagittarius becomes a full moon in Sagittarius in June, May, June usually, yeah, something like that, when the new moon will be in Gemini, so supposedly late May, early June. Do we even want to go in sunrise and sunset? Because there's little to work with, like let's not fool ourselves, there's very, very little to work with. So yeah, just so you know, sunrise on the winter solstice here in Cardiff is going to be at 8:13 a.m. and sunset is going to be at 4:07 p.m. But that is just start expanding. The lighter the better that day on. So it's fine. It's okay. It's gonna be fine. There's not much else really in the British Almanac for this month. What's the Megalith? I haven't even checked the Megalith. What was the Megalith? No Megalith? We should have a Megalith. That's what we do. The Megalith of the month is Meshove. I'll write it. It's a megalith that is in Scotland, and it's of course aligned with the winter solstice, hence we talk about it in December. And it's interestingly the same kind of angulation that it has certain lots of similarities with angular lights and stuff with the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, I know that all these things were there to sort of mirror the sky or like take the light of the sun at specific angles, which meant specific dates. But fascinating, isn't it? On the winter solstice itself, the sun sets directly above the barnhouse stone that's situated 700 meters away, in the exact line with the chamber and the midwinter sunset. And for 5,000 years so. Because I've had these asked, and just in case I'll mention it quickly, because we have the solstice, like equinoxes and stuff. Yes, the winter solstice, other than being a day, it's actually a specific astronomical moment, because it's exactly the moment in which the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern hemisphere, and that actually happens at 3:02 p.m. here in the UK on the 21st of December. Just so you know. Right, let's go to Italy. Very quickly, before going properly to Italy, I will tell you this about Saturnalia. It is a very old festival of before Christ times in Rome. And part of it was overlapped or trying to bring the Cronia, which is the festival of Cronus, as it was in Greece. And it tries to bring it to the Roman tradition with Saturn, who is the Roman counterpart of Kronos. However, along with being the counterpart of Kronos, Saturn was also seen as this very ancient Roman king that actually overlooked and governed during a time that was so perfect that was called the Golden Age, which makes me think that this kind of romanticization of the past really has always been there. And the idea of Saturnalia was, let's turn the world on its head, let's make the slaves and servants elevated to the same function of kings, and actually households that had slaves and servants would actually invert things so that the servants would sit at the table and the masters of the house would serve them at the tables, and the world would be up on its head, but it would be the best of times. It's interesting. It used to be just one day, I think, on the 15th or the 17th of December, and then it extended up to 7 days, and indeed then it ended on the 25th of December, which of course it has to do, therefore, with the solstice, just because the entire point of Sol Invictus, of the birth of the invincible sun, it's because after the solstice, the hours of light, the hours that the sun is up in the sky, starts to get longer. Therefore, the sun is sort of reborn after the winter solstice, and that's what it was about. Apparently, it was very, very fun times. Food, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that kind of thing. The tradition of bringing evergreens inside the house, also something that we get from Saturnalia. It's unsurprising then that as we've seen the entirety of the year, if there is a pagan festival, what will the Christians do? Oh, nice festival you have there. Would be a problem if it became a saint? No, it won't. And in this case, it becomes the birthday of Christ with Christmas. And then you find funny things that people get offended when you just want to say Happy Holidays rather than Merry Christmas, as if they invented everything and stole nothing. But it's actually the other way around. Even in Italy, there's not much. We are at the end of this almanac as well, but there's not much that happens. People were in the home, in the farm, staying very, very close together, at the stove, at most canning, and we were waiting until February, March to start considering looking, not even working, looking at the fields again. The first day that we have of weather forecasting, that, as we have seen, is just a thing that we do in Italy, because if it rains on the 1st of December, which is Sant'Anzano and Bibbiana, it will rain for 40 days and a week, which is going to take us to the 17th of January, so it's going over that phase of the 12 nights of Christmas and all of that. It's covering all that area of the darkest, possibly wettest time of the year, but without any of the fun. On the 4th of December is Santa Barbara. She's the protectress that has to do with fire and lightning, and for some reason related to that, she's the protectress of the army in Italy. Apparently, a lot of the rituals that have to do with Santa Barbara were actually stolen from the rituals related to the Bona Dea, who was indeed this great mother goddess of the Romans. Between the 5th and 6th of December, we have the night of the KrampusNacht. It's something that it's observed and has the legend on, especially in northeast Italy. My friend Sofia Righetti actually talks about it. So if you check out her podcasts, they are in Italian, but YouTube now translates it automatically. So she might be able to tell you more about KrampusNacht than I can just based on the Almanac. The Krampus are these weird little creatures with horns and bells and drums. And they also have whips, and they're supposed to use the whips against children that have behaved badly. There's a lot of these children behave badly and you don't get gifts and you don't get sweets, but you get coal. It's a lot of threats to keep children in line, which, as you know, is not exactly the way that I like to see things. Apparently there might be overlap with, you know, the Green Man, even Odin at some point, kinda parts related to Santa Claus, so Saint Nick. But the good thing about them is that because they are wearing all these bells and all these noisy things, they were supposed to come down from the mountains and run around the villages, and the noise that they would make would actually scare away any kind of bad spirit. So it's still what we do when we do sound cleansing with bells. That's the same. On the 6th, indeed, we have Saint Nicholas, San Nicola, which is, you know, one of the variations from which we get Santa Claus or Father Christmas, depending where you are. Apparently, unexpectedly, because it goes overlapped with, you know, Santa Claus and all these things, you would think that then is the main thing. Apparently, San Nicola in Italy, the main overlap that it did and festivities that it took over from pagans are related to Neptune, Poseidon, which apparently is the reason why still he is considered the protector of sailors. On the 8th of December, we have the Immaculate Conception, which is bank holiday in Italy, actually. And it's the day that supposedly Sant'Anna, the mother of Mary, gets pregnant with Mary, which makes sense because we have seen in September, on the 8th of September, exactly 9 months later, we have the birth of Mary, technically, according to the Christian calendar. Interestingly, actually this story is not within the Gospel, but it's part of the Apocrypha. But we still take it because it's clearly still in the calendar officially according to Catholicism. There is some interesting overlaps in the belief that actually putting Sant'Anna related to her getting pregnant with Mary has to do with crone aspects of goddesses, just because Sant'Anna is supposed to have been quite old when she conceived Mary. As you know, I am not very fond of the Maiden Mother crone, mostly because, despite what we say and perceive nowadays, very, very new concept. It comes from Robert Graves from the 1940s. So to think that this was something seen in older times, like if we're talking about the Caliac, maybe, but this doesn't quite specify, and just because it talks about hags and crones, it makes me think that, I don't know if I would necessarily give attention to that. But just so you know, now you know. 13th of December is Santa Lucia, and in some parts of Italy, it's the real Christmas, actually. We were in the Julian calendar before the Reform in the 16th century, and in the Julian calendar, the 13th of December was the winter solstice. After the Reform, we got to the Gregorian calendars. There were those like 12 days that needed to be added to rebalance things, and then we got leap years to keep it in check and all of that. But before that, that's why the 13th of December and Santa Lucia, therefore, were seen as almost the equivalent of Christmas, and then there's light after that. Why? Because the solstice was here. I don't have a good relationship with Santa Lucia just because one of the threats that my mother used to tell me was, I'll make you Santa Lucia II, I will carve your eyes out and give them to you on a plate in your hands. I'm not joking. Like, that's the thing. One of the things that it brings, the Almanac here, is the story. So the story is that she had a pagan fiancé, and he told her, oh, I can't live without the light in your eyes. And so what does she do? She carves her eyes out and gives them to him on a plate. And that's supposed to be the idea of, oh no, you bad person, just because you are pagan, I will not give myself to you. Despite that being a very nice thing to be like, I don't think that it was necessarily anything bad.
I'll give you my eyes.
But they're beautiful where they are. That's the thing. But yeah, I don't have a great relationship with it, because along with I made you and I can as easily break you, as a child, one of the threats of my mother was indeed, I'll make you Santa Lucia the seconds, I'll carve your eyes out and give them to you in your hands. Yeah, that's fine. Apparently, in South Italy, Santa Lucia is syncretized to a level to Ceres, the meter, because she's related to grains, and apparently in South Italy, much more than the bringing of the gifts or anything like that, it's about the celebration of the grains. So I imagine also cooking with the grains or blessing the grains, or you have the sprig of grains that then get blessed and you keep around the house for the entirety of the year to sort of bring the blessing. In North Italy, Santa Lucia pretty much does what Father Christmas does and brings around gifts to children. The thing is that she's blind, and I'm not saying that she wants children to be blind too, like that's just my trauma from my mother, but she supposedly comes and is heralded by the sound of a little bell. When children hear the bell, they need to have their eyes closed and be in bed, because she needs not to be seen, and you would think it ends there and it's fine. Of course, we need to be more threatening in Italian, and therefore the thing is, if you actually are a child and they keep their eyes open and they see Santa Lucia, they will then lose actually their sight, and like it always gets so threatening, which I think it's why? The legend is that if you keep your eyes open and she sees you keeping the eyes open, she will throw fire embers in your eyes, making you blind forever. You tell this to children in Italy. Still related to the eyes, apparently it's a thing to go to mass and use the, holy water that you get at the entrance of Catholic churches to put on your eyes, and that way that will supposedly protect them. Don't do that, because just the idea of this water being there and everybody puts their fingers in, and then you go in and that water with all the bacteria of everybody's hands, which are the place in the body that has the most bacteria all the time, it just gets festering and you put it on your eyes. Don't do that, but that's apparently a thing. Plenilunio means full moon, so when is the last full moon? Apparently there are traditions about the last full moon of the year in Italy, which in our case would be the 4th of December this year, with the full moon in Gemini. Apparently what you do on the night before the full moon, before the last full moon, is to put out a bowl with water. We do that a lot in Italy, the bowl of water that stays out in the night and then it becomes magic. It's just something that we like to do. So you put it out and you expect, the entire point is, this bowl of water needs to freeze. In the morning, you go out, there's still the block of ice, supposedly. You take the block of ice to your local square, and on this block of ice, you kill a chicken or a rabbit. It gets dark. Then you move the shape of ice upside down so that it looks like the blood is coming out of the ice. It gets dark. And this apparently was to, do sympathy magic related to the fact that that was the last full moon of the year. It needed to die so that it can bring new things in the new year. So that the actual killing of the animal on this bowl of water, because water is very related to the moon, so I completely understand why you put out the water, you make it become ice, and the moon has shone on that water. Moon and water are connected, and therefore the power of the moon is in the water. You kill something on it yeah, but it's a bit dark. It's okay. I'm telling you this for informative purposes. Don't do this at home or in your local square. Finally, we're getting to the winter solstice and Christmas, 21st to the 26th of December. Do I need to say more about the Romans used to do the birth of the new sun, and the Christians have taken that word by word, and it's the birth of Christ? Like, it's pretty much obvious, like it's just taken as it was, and we're just putting something else on it. What surprised me is that actually the Yule log, it's still a tradition in Italy, the one that you eat though. So, along with the tree, that again comes from Saturnalia, from bringing the evergreen in, so that during the dark time of the year, you have something of nature that's still green, that will become green again, and sort of takes you there. There's also this sweet cake that it's indeed the Yule log, or with the chocolate around, so it's a cake, it's not a log. And apparently it comes from the arboric tradition of the Yule log itself. And apparently we had it in Italy, which again, because we had the Celts in Northwest, makes complete sense that for a time we shared that tradition. The panettone that we have in Italy is considered one of the sacred kind of breads that you make ritually as well. I like that even Tiziana Granata goes, let's be honest with ourselves, from antique times to the Christian times, the tradition remains the same, the name changes, but not the meaning of the moment, and the announcement, it's always that there's a new birth, a new beginning. Why? Because the sun and the days therefore get longer after the solstice, and that's all we're celebrating here. Then we give it different names, that's what it is. There's this rebirth of the year. Christmas Eve, very magical day in Italy. Christmas Eve, yes, not Christmas itself. So it is the magic night in which if you have a gift for segnature or for reading and dispelling the evil eye, this is the night that you pass that gift on to someone else. Something that I loved to discover from my friend Alfredo, who has the gift through his family of the reading and dispelling the evil eye, is that it doesn't have to be a blood thing, which I love, because usually anything that is based in blood then tries to do stuff in a bad way, and it very, very easily slippery slopes towards eugenics. We don't do that. We don't like that. We share struggles, and that's how families work. That's why families of election sometimes are much, much more worth than blood families. And I'm saying this because it's a discussion that Alfredo and I have had for the last 2 or 3 years. And he said that he would be very happy to pass on to me the gift of reading and dispelling the evil eye. The only thing that we need is to be together on Christmas Eve, which, as you can imagine, not the easiest of things, because usually you have commitments with family. Blood, unfortunately. But also, on Christmas Eve, you do a similar thing to what happened in June with St. Peter and Paul. So you basically put the egg white in water outside, and at midnight you're supposed to see what shape formed of the egg white in the water. You should be able to see a bridge rather than seeing the sails that you saw back in June for St. Peter and Paul. Some people say that you're able to look yourself in the water, look at your mirror image in the water, and then see the face of the person that you will marry. Other people try to just read signs to understand what the weather and therefore the harvest will be for the year to come. Oh yeah, there's the 12 nights of Christmas. As we saw back in November, 12 days, 12 nights have to do with the fact that the solar year and the lunar year usually have a discrepancy of 12 days. So the fact that we say when the last moon is and then what and how it relates to the solar months instead, there's always this discrepancy of 12 days that at some point you need to make up for. So either you do it in the Dodecadron of the Dead from the 1st to the 11th of November, or part of the 12 nights of Christmas is also to that end, basically. As I said before, the thing about the Yule log, it's a thing, especially in North Italy. Apparently in Lombardy, which is the region where Milan is, there's the tradition of il cep, which is literally the log. And you were supposed to burn this piece of wood in the fireplace uninterruptedly between Christmas and Santo Stefano, Boxing Day. And this wood was supposed to be a composite of wood that came from all the previous months, so that in a way you sort of burnt what the year gave you. And you would also give offerings to the log, so it reminds me a lot of what we say for Vesta, that when the fire burns, because the fire allows you to give gifts, you throw food in the fire, and when it burns in the fire, you have offered it to the fire. In my case, to Vesta, but in this case, to the log. Once the log would burn down completely, the head of the family would get all the little coals, all the ashes from the log, and they would keep it aside when there are dangerous situations like, storms or stuff like that, because they would be protective at that point. And on top of that, you would use those ashes on the fields to make them more fertile, which it's actually what ashes do, admittedly. But also you would use them around the fields to sort of draw a liminal barrier, yes, against animals, but especially for magical reasons. Let's not fool ourselves. They were literally using the ashes to draw the circle to protect the field. 31st of December, we throw away stuff, especially furnitures, and we burn it. A lot.
Attenti sotto! Buttate! Buttate! Hanno nuova, roba nuova! Attenti alla destra!
Like there are films that joke about it, that you would throw, I don't know, a washing machine out of your window from like the 3rd story or something. Like, don't do that. But it's, yeah. And it's supposed to be part of the idea that what happened in this year, you're drawing a line, you're getting rid, if evidently this has been a bad year. But, Italians are pessimists, so there's always something bad to get rid of. And therefore, the same way that you kill the moon, the same way that you do this stuff, and you try to get rid of stuff, you also get rid of furniture on the 31st of December to just close the year. Most interestingly is that on the 31st of December, along with throwing away stuff, you would basically make a mini altar on your window. I imagine exactly to propitiate the dead or the new year coming to you in good ways, because you would put good foods on the windowsill, hoping therefore to entice good things from the new year to come to you. And there's this thing about you cannot leave things undone. You're making crochet, you need to finish your project so you don't bring literally anything from the old year into the new. And apparently it's also very important to tidy up. You cannot bring the untidiness and the mess of the old year into the new year. So really, like, I can only imagine housewives from after Christmas to before New Year's Eve just working all the time in their houses to sort everything out, because you need to be sparkling good and perfect on the 1st of January. And I would like to think that the family helped them, but you know. In certain regions, they bake a bread called the carzenza, which is a sweet bread that you make with whatever is left of old stale white bread. And you put sultanas in it, you put raisins in it. You make it on the New Year's Eve, and then you eat it in the New Year's Day. And in it, you either put a fava bean or a coin. And guess what? Whoever finds the coin or the fava bean has luck for the entire year. You are also supposed to bring good luck, eat 12 grapes at the stroke of midnight. And you need to eat 1 grape per stroke of the bell of the campanile, of the church tower. And supposedly the grape that was the sweetest, you would need to remember what number it was, because it would say what was the sweetest, the best month of the year to come for you. We have Questwe, even for New Year's Eve, which is basically the trick and treat again. You go around and you ask for foods or for nice things that the family can spare. And in exchange, you quite literally sing Christmas carols, not necessarily Christmas, but carols. So we had the tradition of caroling as well. And in the end, you give me something, usually food, or I will curse you. So, trick. The 12 nights of Christmas are considered from the 25th of December to the 6th of January in Italy, rather than the ones 12th of December to the 25th of December, which I seem to understand it's what the Anglo-Saxon world looks at. No, for us in Italy is Christmas to Epiphany, La Befana, which is the 6th of January. And apparently there are a lot of overlaps between the vision that we have of La Befana, which is its own specific kind of hag, and antique rituals that have to do with Diana, maybe even Hecate, and what in Italy is known as La Signora del Gioco, La Signora del Gioco, which is considered the mistress witch that other witches would go to during the Sabbats. I have a book about it, I still haven't read it, and it's just in Italian, so give me time on that. But yeah, usually in the Italian witchy tradition, La Signora del Gioco is the main character and the main head witch, basically, in Italian tradition. And the thing about keeping everything tidy is also because in certain regions there's the legend that La Signora del Gioco goes around with her entourage, similar to the caccia selvaggia, so the wild ant that we saw in the previous month. And if she comes to your house and she finds out that things are not tidy and put well together, supposedly she will open the belly of the woman that hasn't tied it up, and she will take her guts out, and she would fill her up again with anything remaining for, again, undone projects like crochet, with a yarn, with stuff like that. And admittedly, and this I don't know where to find sources about, but I remember from when I was a teenager looking into witchcraft in Italy. Yeah, I've done that. Witchcraft in Italy, and people that practice witchcraft in Italy and think or try to do it in a traditional way, all agree that one of the ways to feel initiated is having these kind of dreams where your body is supposed to get dismembered and then put back together, and supposedly this is a death and rebirth. And I remember that there were covens. Why did I never talk about this? I keep saying that I haven't done witchcraft in Italy. It's absolutely not true. But yeah, I remember knowing about this coven. There were already websites, we're talking about the end of the 90s, but they were only considering themselves a coven of priests and priestesses, because every person in this coven had to have had this revelatory dream of birth and death and rebirth. And if you didn't have that, you're not initiated enough, the gods don't want you enough. We're always fucking elitist in Italy. But yeah, so apparently this thing about La Signora del Gioco going around, and if you haven't done your duty, she will dismember you and remade you with what you've left. Other than being incredibly threat that I think patriarchy does rather than La Signora del Gioco herself, it sounds to me like it's going along with that tradition that apparently we believe in Italy, that you need to be dying and then be rebirthed and remade physically before you become a witch. Another funny thing about La Befana on the 6th of January, even if we're going already into January, is that on the 6th, supposedly, La Signora del Gioco is also La Signora delle Bestie, so the lady of the animals. And on that day, she gives the word and the ability to speak to animals, and that way animals will judge people. Which, same as Saturnalia, it feels like that should keep things in balance, you'd think. Well, witches, I hope that this was entertaining, if not useful. And I hope that we can all have a chilled, cozy month of December, somewhere that we can keep warm and safe. And I will see you all with this series back in January. And until then, I really hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there's need for it.